Mate, who is from ABSA Group, just giving us some more insights and perspectives into this report. Many thanks, George, for sparing time to join us on the show.
Many thanks to you and also to your viewers.
Well, let's just take a quick stock take of what does this mean for Kenya and the East African economy at large.
So thank you very much again. So the ABSA Financial Markets Index is a market development index that tracks the maturity of the various African markets that are assessed on an annual basis. And it also tells which aspects of the financial market are different countries performing very well and where do they need to improve. It's an index that is independently published by OMFIF, which is an independent research house that and sponsored by ABSA. It's been published for 2 years, and in the latest review or in the latest publication, there were some big trends that we saw. One of the big observations, as you rightly highlighted, was Kenya actually progressing quite significantly on the index from a 5th position in 2017 to a 3rd position in 2018. And that is as a result of particular actions that have been taken within the Kenyan economy, making the Kenyan economy very welcoming to investors. So, for example, one of the pillars where Kenya does very well is accessibility to foreign exchange. And that is very important because foreign investors who want to bring money into Kenya always look at that in terms of how easily they can invest in the market and how easily they can take their money out. And Kenya is a really shining example for the continent. And then when it comes to the other aspects where Kenya needs to do a bit more, you rightly talked about it, is the market debt. And in market debt, what we're talking about is the depth and breadth of the financial market. So how many products are available for investors to be able to invest in Kenya? How many products are available for corporates to be able to protect themselves against financial risk, for example? And there we see that Kenya hasn't built up on the progress it's made on the foreign exchange side as in terms of building much more products for investors and also for the corporate sector. And there is a lot that Kenya can do to really boost its performance when it comes to that pillar. And then the other pillar where Kenya needs to do, sorry.
Carry on.
Okay, so the other pillar where Kenya also needs to do a bit more is building local capacity of investors within the local market. And it is critical that Kenya depend on foreign investors bringing their money in and taking it out when they want. It's so critical, but it's also absolutely critical that we build a Kenyan market which has a very strong participation from local investors, whether they are institutional investors, retail investors, or corporates. And there we can see that Kenya's performance hasn't been as great as some other best practice countries on the continent. And it talks to things that has to do with knowledge of trustee boards, for example. It talks to how we've been able to open up the financial market to you and I mean people on the street, to be able to participate in the financial market as an investment avenue or a means to really boost their investment. It talks to a low uptake of products that have been listed on the NSC or that are produced by banks and other investment banks which have very low uptake by the investment public. So you talk about things like the ETF, you talk about things like the REITs, for example, which have very low participation.
All right.
The report really brings out some of the things Kenya needs to do to be able to improve uptake in these instruments.
Interesting. Sorry, I branded you Mate instead of Asante as your second name. But as we wrap up the conversation, yes. Asante, what does this symbolize, especially when it comes to a situation where we've seen the financial sector in Kenya is quite robust, as you've correctly put it, but financial inclusion is still a big challenge, especially among the low-income segment of the economy. What needs to change towards tapping into this this niche, and how big is it for the banking system in the long run?
So there is a big funding gap that we have across the continent, and Kenya is not an exception. Basically, every country within Africa needs to finance a budget deficit. Corporate needs to borrow money. And we believe that the money is available. It's a matter of creating a very conducive environment for people to be able to invest and really connect people who have savings to people who need funding. So when it comes to things that really need to be done, I think education is one. It's absolutely critical that we educate and get people to shift away from historically investing in very basic products into much more complex products that can diversify their income streams, for example.
All right. And finally, how stable is the financial system, especially when we are also seeing cybersecurity being a big concern, as well as matters to do with regulations in the banking system?
So one of the pillars of the index, which is pillar 3, tracks the regulatory environment, the tax environment, the financial markets infrastructure. What we've seen across the continent, and countries like Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria are good examples, is the strengthening of the regulatory regimes to be able to address emerging risk, whether it's in the financial system or other. So we've really seen a lot of progress across the continent, and we see countries like Kenya really leading the way when it comes to stronger regulatory environment for financial markets products, and also building financial markets infrastructure that is able to mobilize funds in a safe and efficient way.
All right. Many thanks there.